Welcome to a very special episode. I am so incredibly excited because I am here with the one and only Ellinor de Lorenzo, host of
Hello.
the Lost Mountain Saga and other sagas, and the brand new season 3 Man of River. Uh, and I believe, let me check, according to my notes, noted uh, fantasy bird killer.
Yep, that's me. Yeah.
Ellie, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to chat with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is I'm very excited to talk to you. It's always fun to sit down and talk about the behind the scenes of things
Hmm.
and also fellow Vassen enthusiasts. So this is great.
I have noticed actually there are more and more Voss and actual plays starting to pop up, so hopefully
Yeah.
there's going to be even more soon.
Yeah, I there seems to be, slowly but surely the system is picking up some steam, and people
Hmm.
seem to like discover it. I also think it's great because they're expanding it to other parts of the world. They started with Mythic Britain and then now Carpathia. So I think that helps as well to make it a global
Hmm.
phenomena.
Uh, there are also a couple of supplements that I've seen on Drive Through RPG for things like Mythic Japan that are
Mm.
really interesting and really well researched.
Oh yeah, I would I would love to play one of those in Japan. That would be awesome. But
Hmm.
also, I've seen people do stuff in Canada, the U.S. So yeah, it's doesn't really seem like it has any. There's no limit to the imagination of where
Yeah.
this system works. Obviously, the name Vasen will forever be Swedish or Scandinavian. The name Vasen would be. It's always interesting to hear what the creatures are called in other parts of the world. Like if there's a name for it in English. I'm not
Hmm.
sure like what it would be in English. Like yeah, does because Vasen has such a it means a lot of things in Swedish. It's like can also be your soul. It can also be noise.
Hmm.
It could also be like rättsväsende is our legal department, which is like rättsväsen, so rightsväsen. It's a very
Hmm.
cool name. So in that way, it has m- several functions.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now, Ellie, since I have you here, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I have had many people pronounce the name of the game and the name of the creatures differently. I've heard
yeah.
Vasen, I've heard Vesen, I've heard Vashen. Would you be willing to tell us what the most accurate pronunciation would be for
um,
with a Swedish
it's
background?
Vasen, Vasen.
Okay.
So no Vasen or
No Vesen.
uh, Vasen, no Vasin. I've heard as well. No, it's Vasen. Like
Okay.
it's an a sound. But
An
they
acid, if you will.
yeah, acid exactly like Vasen. Vasen, no Vasen, yeah. And I think it gets confusing because they don't spell it with the a with two dots is
Hmm.
how we would spell it. They spell it with A-E, I guess, to make it less confusing. In my
Hmm.
opinion, a mistake. I think they should have kept the dots with the A with two dots, but um, it, everyone, I guess, they in their marketing department went through variations of that. So yeah.
All right. Well, now that I've already put you on the spot about your Swedish background,
Hmm.
I think it is a great time to talk a little bit more about your background.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share how you first got introduced to RPGs?
First introduction was probably similar to everyone else. Young teen, was very interested in fantasy. I've been reading a lot of fantasy books, and so I talked to some guys at school, and they told me that they were playing. This was the previous version of Dragonbane,
Hmm.
similar
Drakar
name.
Octomoner?
Exactly, Drakar och Demoner, which we thought were Dungeons and Dragons, just a translation, but it wasn't. It was a completely different game where Natural One was the best thing, was a critical hit. And yeah, so that was my first experience playing a role playing game. But then I took, then I didn't really, that was not a great group or experience. I couldn't really, I felt also limited by the rules of the game. So it wasn't really my thing back then. I took a pretty long break, and then I got into it again around 2015, 2016. Played a little D&D, and then got into Pathfinder and then Starfinder through
Hmm.
working on a show with the Glass Cannon Network called Androids and Aliens, and that was Starfinder, a very rules heavy D20 system. And yeah, that's sort of my background in role playing specifically. At
Um,
least the
mhm.
type of like tabletop role playing.
Yeah.
But I did do some like role playing in terms of playing out characters and making character sheets online and playing
Mhm.
in World of Warcraft role playing. I did that kind of stuff, but there were no rules involved.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite pieces about Drakar or Dragonbane, as the new edition is called, is back in the 70s, D&D tried to expand out into Sweden, D&D in the sense of Dungeons and Dragons from America, and the
Yeah.
Swedes were like, what do you mean? We already have D&D. We don't need
Yeah.
it. We're good.
Yep.
We've
Yep.
got our own D&D."
I know, I know. I love, and it's always interesting talking to the generation, the people who were born in the 70s and the people who were born in the 60s. Both huge
Hmm.
fans of role playing games. However, the slightly older generation, they got introduced to D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, the American game, and
Hmm.
sort of missed the Drakar and the Demoner that came a little like a decade later in the 70s,
Hmm.
and so it's always fun to because they are sort of like as with any nerd hobby, I guess there's
Yeah, those
some,
generations.
yeah, there's, but it's also like, that system is better, and no, that better system is better, like people always warring about that kind of stuff. uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's always fascinating to hear how long this hobby has existed, but it's been sort of a
Hmm.
fringe hobby for so long. And I guess it got gained popularity now with Critical Role, but
Hmm.
before that, I feel like it was a very niche hobby for outcasts. And then now it's obviously more popular, and a lot of people who are older, like in the 40s and 50s, who don't
Yeah.
care about social stigma, and they're like, listen, I just want to play my game. I don't care about this being socially awkward or whatever. Yeah.
Hmm. Were there any other Swedish role playing games you'd kind of seen or had in the orbit, or was it just that initial experience with Drakar och Demoner and then moving on to D&D later on?
Yeah, no, I didn't even know that there were any other games. I Free League's previous company name was Jan Ringen, and apparently they had a bunch of other games like Mutant.
Mutineer Zero?
But yeah, and I absolutely had no idea what that was or encountered it, they were big, in these small circles. But back then it was
Hmm.
like you could really have, before the internet, it was just like some people knew about things and some people really didn't. I
Hmm.
my nerd interests were pretty mainstream. I also, I woke up to all of that with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings when those
Hmm.
movies came out. So I did not like, I'm not an OG nerd in that way. So I wasn't really aware of anything that existed.
I do have to admit, before the Lord of the Rings movies came out, I tried to read the book in a big, giant collected edition so many times,
Yeah.
and like 5 times in a row, I fell asleep during it
Mhm.
because I kept
Yeah.
trying to read the prologue that was on concerning hobbits, and I
Yeah.
would just like wake up with this giant book on top of me. And it was like, why do people love this? It's so boring.
Yeah.
And then I finally
Yeah.
skipped the prologue and I was like, oh, it gets good. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I personally, I love Tolkien and I love that it is written like that, but I think
Hmm.
it definitely is an acquired taste. But I think we have to remember that back when it came, it was one of a kind.
Oh,
So I think
100%.
that's, yeah. But no, I've heard that from a lot of people. You're not alone. It is also like The Hobbit is, it's also funny how they're written very differently. The Hobbit, like the tone
Hmm.
is different, and also switches midway because of the
Hmm.
narrator changes. It goes from Bilbo to Frodo, but I love Tolkien. Like it's my favorite, absolute favorite world and writer, and I could talk about forever, for hours and hours.
Well, I don't want to get us too off track,
No,
but
no, no, no.
we can come back to that at some point because I do want to talk about more role playing game things.
Yep.
But you and I should sync up on a very funny story about The Hobbit and how a Swedish illustrator resulted in part of the story getting changed.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I
I
know
believe
that
her
the
name was
Swedish
Tova Jansson.
Tove Jansson. Oh,
Yeah,
really?
who is
I
most
think
famous
I
for drawing the Moomins.
Yeah, but she's from Finland.
Oh, Finnish. Oh,
Swedish,
Finnish. Okay.
Swedish, but I think Finland can claim her, and they will be very
Okay.
mad if I try to claim her as a Swede. But no, she's phenomenal in her art. Yeah, no, she's phenomenal. I did not know
uh,
that she changed the.
she
That is
she
very
did
interesting.
an illustrated version of The Hobbit, and
Oh,
her version of Smeagol, or pardon me, of Gollum was adorable. And Tolkien was like,
oh,
no, 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 it's all wrong. None of that fits. And then he looked at his description. He was like, that is technically accurate to everything I said, but no, it's all wrong.
yeah, amazing. Oh,
And
that's so
so he
cool. I
went
didn't know.
back, especially to make it line up better with what would come later in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And so, like, completely changed the riddle for the ring
Oh,
and the whole riddle in the Dark Chapter.
that's so cool. Okay, that's my new favorite story. Yeah.
All right. More RPG things. So you mentioned in around like 2015, 2016, getting involved with the folks in Glass Cannon.
Hmm?
Had you been doing more acting prior to that? And then kind of jumped into acting with them
And
with RPGs?
yeah, I was a full time actor before auditioning for them actually. So
Hmm.
I did it was went through like a regular acting job. So I had never met them. So I just saw a casting breakdown of them looking for nerds who are into nerdy stuff. And so I figured I am, and and then I applied, and then we hit it off. So yeah, no,
Hmm.
I my background is acting. That's why I came to New York as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And then the acting led into the RPGs, and the RPGs led into more actual play stuff.
Exactly. Like I think I realized, I'm a very skeptic atheist who doesn't believe in anything basically, and I realized reading these fantastical stories back then, I was like, there's no way I can actually be in these stories unless I become an actor. So that's the reason why I wanted to be an actor, because I thought it was
Hmm.
cool. Um, yeah.
And did you wind up meeting Sydney and Anne through Glass Cannon?
And I knew from before, Sydney. She actually worked with my husband. Um, Sydney was through Glass Cannon, but only briefly. Like we had met
Oh,
like
okay.
once, and then COVID happened,
Hmm.
so we didn't really get a chance to work together on Glass Cannon for long
Hmm.
before everything fell apart. Yeah.
And then the three of you came together for the first season of the Lost Mountain Saga.
Yes. 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 Yep.
Uh, Now, since I've got you here, what was your big inspiration for that first season? Other than obviously telling a story, but what kind of inspired that first season's story arc?
Um, I remember reading like a travel newspaper on the Laponian Gate, which is
Hmm.
this cradle, like the mountain cradle up in the north, and so it actually exists. Like it's in the front page of the book. It's a very cool like mountain formation, a valley basically, and I was like,
Hmm.
what happened here? Like if we went crazy with the idea of what happened here. And so I sort of crafted a story around that, like an ending point of how I wanted to end. And then I just went from there, like I backwards engineered the story. So I would
Hmm.
say that was the big inspiration for that. And obviously, this was the summer of 2020, and Free League had just announced Fasten. And so I
Hmm.
saw that trailer, and I'm like, man, this is really cool. It's not like I have anything else to do right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And yeah, and that's where it started.
Awesome. Now, obviously, the first season of the Lost Mountain Saga was one big prolonged campaign
Hmm.
featuring Henrik and Astrid kind of building up, growing before finally facing everything at the Laponian Gate.
Yeah.
Um, I have also been doing a longer running actual play series with the same characters. Did it
Nice.
start to feel like they were invincible for you at the end? Or did it still feel like, because this is a horror game, a couple of bad rolls and they could have just been like taken out?
Um, I definitely felt like they were very squishy, but um, I didn't. I never. No, I don't. I don't think that's what I like about the game. That the game doesn't lend itself that well to becoming like overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You don't get to be the
and
D&D 20th level fighter who's like, aha, you
yeah,
shot me with a cannon. I'm mildly
yeah.
inconvenienced.
But there's been a couple of times when I think that, wow, these monsters are either super underpowered or super overpowered. Like it goes
Mm-hmm.
so, like a battle or a combat goes so fast that I'm like, man, I should have probably adjusted this a little bit. And I will say that that's been one of my I guess where I feel like I need to adjust a little bit the rules of
Mm-hmm.
like the fighting aspect of things that I think sometimes it would be a lot more fun if the session could go on for slightly longer of like you have at
Mm-hmm.
least 5 or 6 rounds of combat
Not like a
versus
Pathfinder combat.
yeah. And I but I'm not quite sure how to make that happen yet. Like we have a recording coming up now where I'm thinking of adjusting the rules a little bit, especially regarding in Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, you have an AC. You roll against the
Mm-hmm.
AC, like the
Mm-hmm.
armor class. Whereas here, you're like the characters have 4 hit points basically, and
Yep.
and then they can die, and some of the damage that the Vasen does is way beyond 4 hit points. So that's
Mm-hmm.
always been to me like this is
Like if you get
so.
slapped by a giant, you are probably going to be squished and dead.
Yeah, which makes sense realistically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't want to engage in combat with them unnecessarily. But however, it is still a role playing game and we're playing like fun, interesting characters. So
Yeah.
completely avoiding combat is also, in my opinion, not that fun. So I kind of want to, I'm trying to like find a way to
To
balance that
balance
out a
it.
little bit. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
at least add an element of chance. Like I like rolling dice of like
Yeah.
give the players an opportunity to maybe dodge or parry
Mm-hmm.
even if they've used already their fast action. So those are the some of the rules that I find to be a little bit wonky currently.
Yeah.
Especially, and also healing seems a little. I always I'm confused by it.
The There's both simultaneously a ton of ways to heal, but no convenient ways to heal in Vasen.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And I
so
think, but
it's an
the
interesting balancing act.
yeah, and I think like this is the thing. Like to me, it was very clear reading the core rulebook that the game creators are very open to adjust the game based on
Mm-hmm.
what you think is fun and how you see fit. And
Mm-hmm.
that's always been my guidance when I do this. But with an actual play, people get you have listeners and people with opinions, and so you end up having to deal with that part of like we did get criticized for the first 2 seasons not following the rules properly, and so that was an adjustment we wanted to make for Man of River, is that let's try to follow the rules and follow what the people had intended.
Mm-hmm.
But I still somehow feel like that's not how I ever want to play role playing games, as long as it's fair. Like I think that's the
Yeah.
most important part. Like it needs to be fair and keep it as balanced as possible. But if a rule doesn't make sense, wasting a couple of hours trying to figure out something is just not fun to me at all.
Um,
Um,
so we
yeah,
try and do something really similar, but even before like our first session, I sent all of my players a document that was like, here's the starting set of house rules that we're already going in with, and
yeah,
we'll probably be making more as we run through.
yeah. and I think that's fair, and my sense is that that's what Free League usually intends with their
Hmm.
games too. Like they want to focus on the story aspect
Yeah, I mean, they
more
are not
than
rules
anything else.
heavy games.
No,
We are not looking at like a Pathfinder or a Starfinder, where you have majority rules and a little bit of story in the book. It's
yeah,
majority story and a little bit of rules to support that.
yeah, for sure.
That said, Free League, if you're listening, feel free to hit me up. I've got some house rules I could throw out at you.
Yeah, I
And
love
I
that.
think if we ever get a Vossen version 2 or like a second edition of Vossen,
Yeah,
there are some things I'm really hoping they incorporate in for
dude, I
longer
would love to
campaign
read your
play.
house rules if you have. Like, I want to send them to me.
I'll send them right after this call.
Yeah,
Um, there's some that are big, there's some that are small. Like one of the biggest examples for me is a PC who gets inflicted with terror after failing a fear check.
yeah,
One of them you could flee.
yeah,
It's for D6 rounds.
yeah.
No Vossen combat is gonna go for 6 rounds. So
Yeah,
if your
that
character is fleeing, you're effectively just removed from the game.
yeah, exactly. That is the same thing of like that's exactly what happened with now spoilers for the new season, but Sydney's like co
I said he fainted, I
co
think, right?
yeah, he fainted
Mm-hmm.
and then he was just out because I rolled like 4 on the D like in
Yeah.
no round, especially if it's one-on-one combat with in this case a revenant. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
man, um yeah, what are
See,
you doing?
Olaf, you're done.
Yeah. Exactly. So
Uh,
fear is a very interesting aspect, and I
mm-hmm.
guess they want to really like have a huge consequence of these
Yeah.
super scary monsters, but also like yeah, combat is a bit wonky in Vesson for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
So
I
yeah,
think
for
they
instance, I actually cut that down to D3 rounds. So I roll the
yeah
D6 and then have the result.
yeah that makes sense.
So if you're
That's a good
fleeing,
rule.
you might be able to get back into the fight before it's done.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And do you have a yeah? I'm gonna read through that. Send it to
Yeah,
me when you have it, and I'll read
I will make it happen.
start incorporating. Yeah.
Now, actually, that does tie into something else that I was going to ask you about. Obviously, in season one, Vossen had just come out.
Hmm?
Y'all were getting into it. You were experiencing the game as one of the first major actual play shows. Are there any rules that you guys wish you used more of? Like the
Oh,
castle
push.
development mechanics or, oh, pushing?
Pushing, I mean, there's a bunch of rules, but this is also like I'm gonna now shit on my fellow players. No, but I feel like they, and this is very common, and GM to GM, I'm gonna bitch about my players a little bit, but like they did rely
Sydney,
on me.
earmuffs?
See, exactly, Sydney and Anne. They did rely on me a lot to look up rules and tell them what to do and what they couldn't do. I think
Mm-hmm.
Anne especially especially Sydney, because Anne is obviously a super. I mean, both of them are super experienced role players, but
Mm-hmm.
Anne, I think, wanted to like did look up some rules to her advantage. uh, and since I was so busy with producing the show, writing the show, editing the show, like
Mm-hmm.
doing all these other things, it was hard to also GM and make sure I also knew all the intricate details of every single rule, especially on their character sheets. So God,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm really trashing them. Like we should know your fucking character sheet, but that's
Well,
occasionally how what I felt a little bit of like, why didn't you guys push more? Like, why didn't you try more things?
mm-hmm.
Because it would have helped you. But then again, at the end of the day, I think it was a really good story that they gave
Yeah.
us. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, it worked out for the best. Um, and I'm also exactly the same as a player, or I used to be the same as a player. That I'm like, I learn as I go, so I can't take in information by just reading it. I have to read
Mm-hmm.
something probably not just 5 times. I have to read something like 40 times for it to actually stick.
Stick.
And
Yeah.
I think I've read the rules on medicine and armor and what else is that I always mess up? Yeah, the fear. I've read it
Mm-hmm.
so many times, and I still every time it comes up, I'm like, oof, what is this? So I don't really.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna be too angry with them for not remembering to do certain things because I'm exactly the same. But I do think like if I would have a home game, I would be like, listen, everybody is in charge of their own
Yep.
of their own destiny. I'm just gonna tell you guys a story, and if you want to do
Here's
something,
here's a page with
you
like
make
a quick
sure.
sheet of the rules. You learn what you
Yeah,
got to know.
yeah, and then I'm not gonna save you if you do a
Mm-hmm.
bad idea. But I do think for Man of River, Sydney has really she's so much smarter this time. So it was easier to trick them in the first two seasons, but now she's just like, wait a second, this is very suspicious. What are you trying to pull? Um, and that's very fun. And it's also a lot more intimate when it's just the two of us.
Yeah,
Um, a lot more. It's a lot harder as well to GM,
I can
and I think it's a
imagine.
lot harder
Yeah,
for her to play because we have to fill the space, the two of us
with
together.
everything. Mm-hmm.
We can never rest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of the pro and benefit, pro and con of
Mm-hmm.
just having a two-person game, um, which has been interesting. But yeah, for sure we
Mm-hmm.
would have used the mechanic push a lot more. We
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, and we I feel like we've fixed this for this new season. We also have built our headquarters. I think that
Yeah,
one was a huge missed not opportunity, but a huge thing that it's so fun that I completely didn't do. Um, because we joke about it. It's like The Sims. We play The Sims with the headquarters of like, adding upgrades, doing fun stuff.
yeah.
So yeah, we've done that. I think we spent like 7 episodes on building, so that's fun.
I was going to say for my show, my players are always more excited to add developments to the headquarters than they are to add things to their character. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I get +1 to this skill and this skill and whatever, but we're going to get a seance room now. And
Oh
we're all
yeah.
like, oh, what are we going to do with that?
Yeah. Um, I would love to be in a group like I think any game that has that of like you're building you're figuring out your home base is
Hmm.
so much fun. Like a place where you can go back and character build. Like you can build
Hmm.
up your character, not necessarily as the like you said, like the level up stuff, but more like have fun interactions at the local
Yeah.
cafe with your fellow players. That stuff is so much fun. Uh,
Huh.
and it's something I've been
Mhm.
missing sometimes in other campaigns because you're stuck. Obviously the campaign I'm thinking of right now is because I did it for so long was Androids and Aliens and Starfinder. Like we were stuck on planets and
Hmm.
had nowhere to go. However, we
Yeah.
did have our spaceship that we could upgrade and do fun stuff with, and
And I was
that
about to say,
was
that
such a
feels like a
nice.
perfect kind of headquarters to build up because it's going to be with
Exactly.
you on each planet.
Yeah, it was such a nice way to also ground our characters and do stuff. I'm also like a sucker for fun role playing moments that aren't combat. So I always wanted to go
Hmm.
back to the spaceship and do stuff. But some other players obviously want to progress the story, so
Yeah.
it's another balance.
All right, now I had a couple more questions about season one.
Hmm?
The season had some amazing arcs, some fantastic mysteries. What would you say is your favorite mystery from season one, and why is it this Where the Sun Dies, episodes 5 through 7?
You nailed it. That's the one.
I love that one so
Uh,
much. It was so good.
I think yeah, I that is also a great standalone a mystery.
Hmm.
I recently played it in Swedish as well
Hmm.
for a Swedish podcast, and that was a lot of fun. Went completely different than the one
On the
we
show.
had in Sydney, but I think that the reason why is because winter is already such a creepy. It's such a creepy setting. So for those of you who haven't heard it, it's set in the north of Norway during the winter, but it's made it even darker and scarier than usual. And it was based on my nightmares as a kid. And speaking of, the Moomin Troll, you mentioned Tove Jansson.
Hmm.
Uh, the monster was based on one of her creations,
Really?
the Lady of the Ice, or
Hmm.
Lady of the
Hmm.
Cold, and she had this in the animated version of the Moomin Troll. The Lady of the Cold would appear on the water and have this thing, and it was the freakiest thing of. I mean, it was probably the scariest thing of my life back then when I was 4 or 5 years old. Can't believe they showed it to kids. and and she was just terrifying. And I'm like, I need to do something about her. This is such a cool concept. And
I absolutely need to go
obviously,
see that now.
yeah, and obviously, when we made it into a campaign with like the rules of Vasen,
Mhm.
they were like, we need to make her an actual Vasen because this is not an actual folk tale, although Lady of the Ice and the Snow Queen and all that exists.
Mhm.
um so that's when we made her into a giant. And yeah, it lent itself well to that world. But yeah,
Mhm.
I really like that story so much.
That I love that mystery.
Mm.
I wish I could run it in my podcast, but
Do
that would
it.
not quite work.
Oh, well, we can do what we have planned is to do like a couple one shots,
Mhm.
and like you could do it with one of your players. Um,
Well, I need to make sure that they have not listened to Lost Mountain and gotten spoilers for what was going to come up.
well, maybe you could change some stuff. Like it could
Mhm.
be something else that appears, or sometimes, are they
Mhm.
actors? Just have them pretend that they don't know what's gonna happen.
So interestingly, all my cast are role players first, and this is their first actual play show.
Amazing. That's
Uh,
also that's nice. I think that
mhm.
gives a nice. Sometimes things can get way too performative when you have too many actors doing things, because what the problem with actors is that oh god, I'm being so cruel to everyone, all of my friends, no, but and including myself. But it's like we really love when it gets emotional and heavy and we can really
Mhm.
get
You can just
down
pull
there.
those heartstrings.
Exactly. And recently, and this is my, I had to pull myself back. We just had a very intense episode. Um, and I had first been like, oh yeah, this is gonna be so fucking good. I was just
I'm gonna
writing it. I
twist the
started
knife.
crying. And then I ended up like, you know what? I'm not gonna fucking do this. So I did like a summarize. Instead of going there, I'm gonna summarize what happened in like
Mhm.
a poem instead. Because I don't wanna do this. No one wants to listen to me having my acting Oscar worthy moment.
I
uh
mean,
maybe.
Patreon exclusive.
Exactly. I'll watch Ellie try to win an Oscar. No. But
And Ellie, for
sometimes,
instance, I hear that is the award to win for actual play shows.
ooh, we should do that, an Ellie Awards, and
Hmm.
I will be the only judge and get hated by everyone.
I think it came up in season 2 actually, where you're like, you're never
Yes.
gonna win an Ellie.
Oh yeah. None of them will. No, they will. Both of them. Both of them are
It's a very
worthy.
exclusive award.
Yeah. So far, only me. I've given it to myself. Uh, I do think they are very brilliant and talented actors, but it's a lot more fun to also see non-actors do things and go
Hmm.
places, because it's a little bit more
You get such a
unexpected.
different, yeah, unexpected direction on things where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, they'll definitely what wait, what? Why are you doing this?
Hmm,
Why
hmm,
would you huh?
hmm,
Why did
hmm,
you think
hmm.
that was a good idea?
Yep. And also, the other thing is that if you have comedians, that's even worse than actors, because they can't stand not being clowns. And once again, I'm talking about mostly myself.
Hmm.
Wanting to have the spotlight on yourself all the time. It's
Hmm.
exhausting, and I hate myself, obviously, but but
But
it's fun.
also GMing where you have to have the spotlight on yourself.
Mm. Oh, I wish. Sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to be a GM ever again. But so far, not felt that at all this season. I felt it a lot
Hmm.
during the second season, and not
Now,
because necessarily of
we'll come
anything
back to
they
that in
did.
a bit too.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about that, but I've got one more quick season 1 question for you.
yeah,
Following up on one of the things you brought up when you were actually kind of translating Vossen into, or pardon me, translating the Where the Sun Goes to Die
yeah,
into Vossen, you
yeah,
also got to make a full professional book that was not published for the adventure. Uh,
yeah.
in the process of kind of that publishing, I did notice some of the characters changed around a little bit.
Oh
Some
yeah,
names changed, some places changed. Can you talk a
yep,
little bit about your experience creating the Lost Mountain Saga as a full Vossen adventure? And also, listener, that is available right at this very moment from
Mhm.
fine brick and mortar retailers or from freeleaguepublishing.com, where you can get it in PDF and hardback right now.
Mm, nice.
I had to
You
work in a
have.
sales pitch for you. I got you.
Can I was gonna say, can I also just say you have an amazing voice, like an amazing. I kind of wanna, if I become like one of those Hollywood producers, I'm like, hey man, you want to do commercials for me because
I
you're
got you.
great.
I got you.
Um, I so it was a complete rewrite of
Mm-hmm.
the entire thing, and it took us 2 to 3 months of pretty full time working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time ever I've been paid to write something, which I think is quite obvious. I'm like, the imposter syndrome is continuing, that I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And turns out I was right, because Thomas and Kiku, my two editors, they were like, this is a good, like, you always, you pour your soul into something and then you
And
send
you
it and
get,
they're
this
like,
is a good draft.
exactly, this is a great rough draft. And I'm like, oh god.
No, it's finished. I've done everything.
Exactly, what are you talking
This
about? This is
contains my whole
perfection.
heart.
Yeah. But I think one of the early notes was from Thomas that, like, this doesn't work at all. Like, you can't just fundamentally change the entire fucking universe of Vass and then like have a world ending event at the end. Like, he didn't word it like that. He was very kind.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but I remember initially pushing back, like, before I said anything, but I pushed back a little bit of like, what? But that's the whole fucking point. um, but then I realized, no, they have a reputation to protect here, and also it does make sense that we need to make these adjustments. So I rewrote the ending,
Mm-hmm.
and then they actually came with a much better storyline for who this strange, mysterious woman was and what had happened to her, which I loved. And they also knew a lot more about Viking heritage that I kind
Mm-hmm.
of threw in back during season one for funsies, because I
Mm-hmm.
know Anne was very into Nordic folk, like the
I
old
was going to say,
gods.
with especially with Astrid's character.
Yeah, she loved that stuff. So I was like, as a little Easter egg for her, I'm like, yeah, let's do some old mounds of Uppsala and some
Mm-hmm.
sexy spring sacrifice and sexy stuff. But
Oh yeah.
then,
Well, that was there just for Anne, and certainly not for Henrik.
exactly, it turns out that Sydney is the one who got pulled in. No, but it's always funny how I always treat Sydney's characters like sluts, but because it's true. But I think it was then when they were like, we how about this through line to make this character make more sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a great job with that. And then, but they obviously gave me the ideas, and I was like, this is great, let's do this. And we worked on it together for that for that for those last few weeks. And then they asked me to translate it, so that was another like 2 months. But during that time I was also working on, yeah, we'll get to this at the season two, but I was also pregnant and very, very
Mm-hmm.
sick. So it was like a lot of things happened at the same time. It was a pretty low point of my life, um in terms of like how I felt about everything. I was very anxious. So it's not the best thing that has ever happened to me in terms of anxiety. But I am very happy that I managed to see it
Mm.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, I am very excited about the copy that I have, and I have not gotten to bring it to the table yet because most of my Vossen games have been for the podcast. But
Yeah.
I really, really love that book.
I would not mind people, like, I wish people would play it as an actual play, and like, because uh, the podcast Lost Mountain Saga, the initial one,
Mm-hmm.
is so it's a different story, except like
Mm-hmm.
the main plot.
Yeah.
but it's but that one was also so heavily ingrained with Henrik and Astrid. Henrik and
Mm-hmm.
Astrid are completely gone from the book. Like, none of their backstories are in
Well,
there.
you say completely
um
gone, but I have looked at that cover, and it does literally feature Henrik and Astrid.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
He's
come
small,
on.
but
I wonder if you one who made the art, if he's a fan. I would love that.
Mhm.
But I think
we gotta both like pin him down, get him on an interview.
Yeah, I've actually never I've seen him a couple of times, but I've never actually
Okay.
talked to him. I just assume that he seemed like so cool. So I every time
Hmm.
I see him, I panic and run away. Um, but yeah, I think no, it was a great time for me to work on it. But I do
Hmm.
think, uh, I was way above. This was way above what I like. I cannot. This was hard. I was gonna say like this was
Yeah.
not an easy thing for me at all, and I think it shows. Like I think it's not. There are so many things I would do differently now, and of course, and I feel like you should
Oh, I mean,
always.
hindsight on every project, you're like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I could have done this. I could have done this. I could have done
yeah,
this. Why didn't I think to do this?
yeah. But
When
I
I
do
listen back to our
appreciate.
first episode, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my god, why did I think this was a good plan?
yeah, I know. But I think I'm very appreciative of Freely giving me the opportunity
Hmm.
now, considering how rare that is. And I hope, yeah, I hope they give me more opportunities and don't feel like, oh no, this is a terrible mistake.
I,
But yeah,
I mean, I think that it's pretty commonly agreed. Lost Mountain Saga is the OG Vossen podcast. You guys in
yeah,
Sweden roll.
yeah. Oh yeah, I love Sweden rolls. But they do so many other. They do.
So many
I feel
other
like they
things,
are the
yeah.
OG free
Like
league
Swedish
podcast.
podcast.
Yeah, like they know what they're doing, but they do also. I think their main show was the Forbidden Lands, right?
Hmm. And
Yeah,
they've done a
I
really long Dragonbane game.
oh nice, and also and Andreas also,
Hmm.
and that is also something I want to play. He released a Vindhem, uh,
Yes.
which I love so much. I want to play with them more, but I also there's no time in the day.
Yeah, I was
Um,
going to say, I look at my calendar and I'm like, when will I find the time to add these extra RPGs that I want? My for fun
I know,
RPGs.
yeah. But I think yeah, what they're doing is great. So if people haven't
Hmm.
heard Sweden Rolls, check him out. Bunch of real Swedes doing real Swedish stuff. Yeah.
So I did want to get back to that time period you were talking about.
Mm,
You mentioned you're working on season 2 at the same time as working on the Lost Mountain Saga hardback, and
yeah.
also having a baby.
Yep.
There was a pretty shocking episode in season 2,
Yep.
episode 4, went in a very unexpected direction.
Oh, I remember.
Yep. That one's a hard one to forget.
Yep.
Listener, if you have not heard the Lost Mountain Saga season 2, A, what's wrong with your life?
Yep.
B, maybe skip ahead a little bit. Cause we're gonna talk about the episode where Ellie killed everyone.
Hmm.
Uh
Well deserved.
oh wow, throw shots fired. Shots
Yeah.
fired. It's
No,
coming out swinging.
they. So here's the thing. A little behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
What went through my mind is that I felt the two of them were not taking it seriously. And like the threat seriously, like they were goofing around in a fun way, and I loved it, and I also loved the
Mm-hmm.
characters, but I was also like, come on guys, this is like, are you seriously gonna go inside? Like I feel like I'm putting out so many
Like
warnings
warning
that this is a
signs, yeah.
bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. But maybe I didn't, and I feel bad to this day that it's kind of my own, it's my fault as the GM. I should not have let them, I should not have TPK'd, but I also wanted to set an example, like a weird,
Mm-hmm.
horrible, abusive person. I'm like, I'm gonna set an example, and I feel bad. But then it hasn't happened since, so
Yep.
who can say I
Lessons
was
were
wrong?
learned. Lessons
Yeah,
were learned. Although Anne did
um,
move out to my side of the country, so
that's fair. She
yeah.
left New York after that, but I think it
She's
was
like, I've lost my character. I can't stay here. This
no,
town has nothing for me now.
exactly. I do feel bad, but I also feel like that adventure was it was the first adventure in the Mythic Britain book.
Hmm.
Um I wasn't sure, like it was the first time I used someone else's adventure.
Hmm.
And that was also a new experience for me, so I felt less, also I felt like I lost a little bit control. Like the poison came a little bit out of nowhere for me too.
Hmm.
That I'm like, holy shit, this is a lot deadlier than I thought. Fuck, what do I do? And then
Now,
it was already too late. I'm like, I'm not gonna backtrack this.
hmm
And And the rest is history.
I mean, it is a memorable episode, and I don't think listeners see it coming.
No.
Like you said, you telegraph it all over the place of like, Kitty is dangerous. Kitty will do whatever she can to keep her artist colony safe.
Yeah.
She is not messing around. The PCs were like, yeah, we'll drink tea with Kitty and give her like, I know what you're doing kind of eyes. And she's like, okay, great plan.
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes
Yeah.
for you.
Oh
Um,
God.
Looking back on it, is there anything that you might have done differently, like having the characters be knocked out by the poison and like wake up locked in the basement kind of thing? Or are you really happy with letting the dice fall where they may?
Um, I probably should have done something like that. Yeah. But I frankly, season 2 is such a blur to me. I remember it being a couple of really cool episodes of like I
Mhm.
like the one with the eye that was like
Yep.
a translation from Delta Green.
Hey, I
Uh
got that question coming up next.
oh, sorry.
Spoilers.
Uh Spoilers, but I think but in general like season 2 was truly like, all right, we miss each other and we want to hang out. How do we
Mhm.
do that? But
Let's make it a
outside,
show.
yeah, but I definitely, it was a lot more, I don't want to say it like that because it sounds like, but way more half-assed than I think
I
Lost
think
Sunland
instead of
Saga.
half-assed loose, it was a
Loose,
looser
yeah.
season. It
Yeah.
wasn't just one cohesive story, but instead was smaller stories. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that.
It also was remotely recorded, which, in
Hmm.
my opinion, me and Sydney have done one episode remote, and I don't like it.
Okay.
It doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
I
Just the
think it's
change in the
because
vibe.
changing the vibe, the small lag ruins it a little bit for
Mm.
me. Even this interview right now, I'm like, I feel like I would have loved to hang out with you in person, but obviously that's a little too
It's a
far.
little bit of a hop from Seattle to New York.
Exactly. And I think yeah, remote is, for a show, it's hard.
Hmm.
It can work, and obviously you can make it work. But I think the vibe is so much different from when you're
Hmm.
sitting next to each other. And so far, I think that's why I'm loving Man of River so much, because it's truly, I get to see one of my best friends in person, get to hang out with her. We have coffee, and like, it's not, we don't
Cinnamon
even have to
buns.
pretend. We don't have to pretend to like each other. We like each other. So
Hmm.
yeah, I really enjoy that. And I think the other thing with is because I'm, as a person, is I'm kind of an anxious person in case you haven't picked up on that. So when I see people get distracted, which they do inevitably, because on the internet you see the screen flare up and you see that they're not, they're looking at something else. Maybe they're looking
Hmm.
up something. Um, with our one-on-one now with Sydney, she doesn't have a computer. She doesn't have like, we have just each other. I have my
Hmm.
notes on my computer, but otherwise it's just the two of us and our pen and paper, and that's the way I pres- prefer
Yeah.
it.
Well, especially in a one-on-one game, if someone's attention wanders for a minute, you're gonna know.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's also like, I wanna, since I'm a mom now of two small kids, like I want to set a precedent of like, there are ways to hang out without any digital presence. Look,
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now. Um,
More or less.
yeah. So yeah, I think
Hmm.
that's also why I prefer doing it
Those
on.
in-person games.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we did just jump into this, so continuing on. One of the other really exciting stories in season 2 was Eye of the Beholder, which was an adaptation of a Delta Green adventure.
Oh yeah.
What kind of challenges or interesting things did you find adapting another system into Vossen?
Well, the thing is with Delta Green is that it's so loose, so it was super
Hmm.
easy. I was just like, I just stole the story basically,
Hmm.
and then didn't
The
care at
mechanics
all
just kind
about it.
of fly right
Yeah,
in.
yeah. It was like, figure out what the Vasen is, and then I think it's like, just base it like a regular Vasen mystery. That was
Hmm.
so yeah, that was easy. From Delta Green to Vasen, it lends it, and I think it's probably the same with Cthulhu. Any of
Hmm.
these like rules easy,
Investigation kind of
yeah.
games.
it works really well. Have
Hmm.
not tried, like, I know Free League has morphed a lot of their gate systems into D&D,
Hmm.
and I would love to try and see how it works, because I think an upcoming Patreon exclusive episode is me and Skid Mar were discussing actually the One
Mm.
Ring system,
Hmm.
and how to properly play a Lord of the Rings
Hmm.
game session, and how hard it is, because it's such a
Yeah.
difficult world to nail.
And it's such a
Uh,
specific world as well.
yeah,
Like you can't just fight a dragon casually in the world of Tolkien.
no, and also magic is so limited. Like he
Hmm.
doesn't describe any of that, which makes, in my opinion, makes the book so good. But it
Hmm.
is completely different from D&D. But now they've released a D&D Lord of the
Version of
Rings
the One
game.
Ring, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious to play it and see how it works, if it's gonna feel like
Hmm.
a D&D game, or if it's gonna feel like actually Lord of the Rings. But the thing is with Lord of the Rings, and Skid is the one who said this, and so spoiler for what he's gonna say in his session zero, is that he Tolkien was very clear that you don't use you don't use the evil powers against the evil power. That's a bad way to deal with the evil
Hmm.
power. Whereas Dungeons and Dragons, they obviously have necromancy, and they have all these evil things, but also like power hungry things that Tolkien makes it real clear that this is not what you should be doing.
Hmm.
You should resist the power,
It
and
it's
not
kind of
become the level
interesting.
20 hero that you in your dreams. So already there, it's a hard adaptation, but
Hmm.
with that said, I I just love being in Middle Earth. It's my favorite world to be in. I'm obsessed with every new thing that comes out. Rings of Power. I know it's hated by a lot of people, but I love that stuff. I love the War of the Rohirrim. Like
Hmm.
I love everything. I love the old animated movies that were made that look so
Oh,
wonky and weird.
I
I
love
just
those. The old Rankin
yeah
and Bass ones.
yeah, they're great. But yeah, but back to your question is that yeah, morphing,
It naturally
adapt,
flowed from one thing into the next.
yeah, adapting Delta Green to
Mhm,
Vasen was very easy, except for Delta Green is modern time, so we
mhm.
just have to change that part.
So it's really more adaptation of bits of the story
Yeah,
than anything really with rules or specifics on that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Speaking of changes, there was a big change at the end of season two where you got to step out from behind the GM screen and got to be a
Mm.
player.
Mm.
What was that experience like, kind of trading roles with Anne and having her run through that final adventure?
That was awesome, and I think I asked her because I was burning out.
Hmm.
So that was it was such a nice, and I prefer. I'm one of the few people who prefer to not be a GM.
Hmm.
So I love being a player and being able to mess with co-players, but also mess with the GM.
Hmm.
So yeah, I really like that. It's also fun to play. It's a good game to play.
Hmm.
So yeah, I really like that. Obviously, it
Especially after
means
running it for so long.
yeah, and also Sydney and I have, in my opinion, we have great chemistry. Like we love playing off of one another, so that was a lot of fun too. And Anne is a great GM. Like I
Hmm.
knew that she also Sydney's a great GM. She ran me through a D&D game a couple of months ago. And so yeah, I think they're very talented. So that was easy. Like that was
Hmm.
vacation for me.
Speaking of Sydney, you and she have just started up at the time of this recording. I believe episode 11 or 10 just came out this
Yeah.
week.
Yep.
Season 3 of the Lost Mountain Saga called Man of River. There was a little bit of a break between season 1 and season 2. What inspired you guys to come back?
The thing is, I was so done. So
Hmm.
I thought I would never come back
Just with
after
running
Lost
games or running actual plays or
running
just. Mhm.
existing in the whole role playing space. I was like so burned out. I was sick and tired of not necessarily the community, but I was so tired of everything related to it. Not because of anything that had happened. It's just that I felt like
Got tired.
um I got tired, and I think I had done some guest spots, and that's when the itch started to begin again. And I'm like, and people were like reaching out all the time of like, please come back, it would be great. And I'm like, yeah, but there's no money in this.
I can't imagine
Um,
someone who would email you just out of the blue, cold call, like, hey, I love the Lost Mountain Saga. I
yeah.
can't imagine anyone would do that, especially anyone who was starting up a podcast. That'd be weird. I don't know who would do that.
No,
It's
but
me,
you,
listener. The listener,
you
it was
were
me. I
awesome.
did that.
I mean, so many like you have been like so super like that. That's the reason why, it's not necessarily the only reason why we do this because
No,
that
you
would
can
be
say it.
narcissistic
I
and
am the reason
fucked
why
up.
Lost Mountain 3 came back.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take it.
you, the
Clip
sole
that.
reason.
Yep, that's all I need. Yep.
But it
Life
is
complete.
like, the thing is, I think I had like in October 2024, I had sort of like a life identity, not crisis, but like a wake up. Whereas
Hmm.
I was like, what am I doing? I'm currently doing like nothing that I came to New York to do. Like I'm doing administrative work, I'm doing taxes. I was running my own company, but I'm not being creative at all at
Hmm.
this point. Just and I'm barely making money doing that. So I'm like, if I'm not gonna make that much money anyway, I might as well do something that I like. Um, and that's when I read this very interesting story about a certain character that's heavily featured in Man of River. Some Swedes might know who Man of River is. I think most people have figured it out by now. But and I that I'm like, that is such a cool hook.
Hmm.
Holy shit! And it's gonna be revealed in a couple of episodes what that story hook was that created the season 3. But I told Sydney, I was like, if you're in, we can do this. But and and she was the one who suggested a Patreon
Hmm.
just to sort of cover our business expenses at this
Yeah.
point. And then we did that, and we immediately got a lot of people giving us some money. So we were like,
Hmm.
holy shit! All right, well, let's do this and see how long we can do it, and have it as something at least on the side. Like I think both of our
Hmm.
dream well what both our dreams would be to be able to like pursue acting and writing gigs on and have like, oh sorry, I can't record next month, I'm on a feature film shoot in South Africa. But
Hmm.
then then I'll be like, all right, cool, but then I'll have a guest on instead and we'll do a
Yeah.
couple of sessions, but still have this beautiful thing puttering on in the background. uh that would be my like dream scenario. um and we've obviously, yeah, we've invested a lot of creativity in it already,
Hmm.
which has been so much fun. And I'm not getting even close to burnout. I think it also helps that I'm sort of like I've taken some steps to be a little bit more careful with my time spent on other things.
Hmm.
So to me, this currently gives me energy. Obviously very anxious about, I'm like, do people like this? Because we haven't
Yes.
we've well, we've lost almost, like, we have a third of the listener base that we used to.
Hmm.
So that makes, immediately you're looking at the numbers and you're like, okay, so people don't like us anymore, or me anymore, like they don't, they hate me, like you get into these pretty dark
Yep.
thoughts.
Yep.
And you're not really you don't, but then you also remember that in social media and all these algorithms has changed their ways, so we don't get their same reach anymore for whatever reason. Back in
Hmm.
2020, it felt like the internet was like opening up of like, oh, like anyone
Let's
can become a
create stuff.
star.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas now they've changed so much. So like I just now posted a trailer for Man of River,
I
and
I
I'm
actually was going to ask you about that.
yeah,
Usually, for a lot of podcasts, there's a focus on getting the trailer right up front.
yeah.
You guys gave it a couple of episodes. Was that
Yeah.
one an intentional choice, or was it, oh gosh, we need a trailer for this thing?
No, it's been I've had and I think this is the reason why I'm not burning out, is that I've been very intentional in that things will take time
Hmm.
this time around. Like, and I knew that if we don't start recording soon, like if we don't start getting
That
these
moment's going
episodes
to get
in,
lost.
yeah. And I also knew that if I wait for everything, like we also don't have our official graphic yet. I'm still waiting on it. I've commissioned an artist to make it for
Mhm.
us, and I'm very excited to share. But it's like, it's 12 weeks now
Yep.
that I've waited for it, and which is, fine. I think it's better to take your time with it. And the same with the thing with the wall. Like, we didn't have anything set up. We didn't even have the cameras. But I wanted to get going because
Mhm.
that helps you sometimes to figure out what it is as you're going. And I think it's been,
Yeah.
some people, like, people have been appreciated following the journey of, like, this is where they started and this is where we're going. And hopefully, a year from now we'll look back at it and see, oh, where are we now?
Mhm.
you know are we in a huge lawsuit because we hate each other, or or are we or are we actually, like, have a professional setup where we were able to hire a producer and editor and, things like that. You never know where things can
Yeah.
go. But for me, it was important to not try to have a perfect product because I knew it wouldn't be anyway. I would
Mhm.
hate it regardless of how much perfection I strive for. And the same with the trailer is that I wanted to make, first I was like, I'm just gonna hire someone to make a trailer, but then I'm like, I know myself, I'm gonna have so many opinions on this, so I'm just gonna make it myself and learn how to do special effects in.
It came out amazing, by the way. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
I'm proud of it, but
Mhm.
I was speaking of numbers, like, I posted it and I expected, I'm like, the amount of pride I have for this, and I know that this is gonna get like a tenth of the views than me just posting a picture of me and my tits out or something. Like, but it's the honest truth about the internet. Is like the least amount of effort, like the posts that I put so little effort into, of like, oh, felt
Yeah,
cute,
this
felt
might
like
blow
it.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the things that I'm like, I worked 12 weeks on this, my mom likes it.
Yep. Yep.
That's the unfortunate reality of the internet, and that's also an important learning lesson for any content creators, that the world is cruel and full of terrors and nightmares, and nothing will ever. It will always feel so unfair of what gets views and what doesn't. Just know that it's not you; it's the algorithm.
Mhm.
And if you're proud of your thing and you're happy with your thing, hopefully that resonates with the good people, like the good audience
Mhm.
that you want. You don't want necessarily people who will want to see your tits or dicks in your case, but
Yeah, I was gonna say no one wants to see what I got. It's
you never know.
unimpressive.
You never know, but there are some
I mean,
thirsty
maybe with
people
a
out there.
really good corset, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think anyone's coming for me.
Mm. But that's
I
the
was.
thing.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it's the same thing of like people who create hate content and have like
Yeah.
make money off of that. And I'm like, at least, I'm not part of that stuff.
Uh,
I guess I'm a
what
hater of the haters, but yeah.
what I like to think of, and what kind of helps keep me energized and keeps me going, is remembering that things on the internet are forever, and that
Yeah.
sounds a little terrifying,
Yep.
but in a net positive way. The content that I'm putting out, the things that I'm proud of, the stuff that I put blood, sweat, and tears into, people might see it when it comes out, or they
Yep.
might see it a month later, a
Yep.
year later,
Yep.
five
Yep.
years later. Like, we have people who are just now discovering the Lost Mountain Saga season one, even though that
Yep.
came all the way out at this point 5 years ago.
Oh, fuck. It's been 5 years. I was like, it was 2 years ago. But then I'm like, no, it's not.
Nope,
Oh my God.
2020.
Oh God. Yep. No, yeah, that's so true. So true. And I think obviously I look back at things I did 5 years ago and I delete it because I'm like, this is embarrassing. But Lost Mountain Saga is not one of them. That's
Hmm.
something I'm still proud of, and hopefully, if nothing else comes out of this miserable life, then at least that. uh so yeah, I think we're onto something fun. And like I said,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, I get to hang out with one of my best friends, and
and that
we
alone
can have,
makes it worth it.
yeah, yeah.
Now, speaking of something fun, my
Mm.
next question is again about Man of River. What are you most excited about that is coming up in the show?
So I haven't really planned that far ahead. So
Hmm.
things, more exciting things than this, might happen, of course, down the line.
Hmm.
But I am very excited. Um, so we're trying something Look, we're putting some effort into a longer arc. We're gonna play
Mm-hmm.
the adventure Fireheart by one of the co-founders
Oh,
of Free League.
yes. I
Um,
Listener, you can't see my face, but I'm very excited right now
yeah,
for game
that
master reasons.
yeah, and that because that Vasen is so out of there, and Sydney and
Uh-huh.
Skidmar, who will be we will have three players, oh, two players
Okay.
and me, so it'll be total of three.
Mm-hmm.
My ambitious plan is to add two cameras, so one table camera and one wide shot, so we get
Mm-hmm.
also our beautiful wall that we built.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to create a pretty cool like TV production of it, and I'm thinking it will be like a six session project.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna modify it a little bit. I want to make it a little bit bigger. But the main Vasen in that adventure is so out of nowhere and unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
that I think Skid and Sydney will be like, "What
Are
the
gonna lose
fuck?"
their minds.
Exactly, because it's truly not like I'm not even gonna reveal to them the name of the adventure because I think
Yeah.
that's already a spoiler. But I think, and we're gonna use the minis from. I'm gonna use it from Dragonbane, the Free League
Oh,
Dragonbane. I'm
okay.
gonna
Yeah,
use
yeah,
like
yeah.
their maps and stuff that they
Mm-hmm.
gave us. And it's too bad because there's a Swedish artist called Ludde. I forget his last name, but he reached out and he's like, "Hey, I make like custom art and handouts for this. I can send you some." But then I'm like, "Fuck, we're not gonna be able to get it in time before we start
Mm-hmm.
recording." But that would have been so cool to have like these props, and so that's the idea, and I'm very excited for that. But so far, it's Friday now. I have 5 days to figure this out, and I'm a little bit like, uh-oh, I haven't even started prepping. So as per usual, it's probably gonna be some sort of middle way solution to this. But
Mm-hmm.
my ambition is very high, and I'm sure I'll land
I am so
somewhere in the middle.
excited for this one. Having read that adventure, usually I'm on the Vossen Reddit and people are like, "Hey, what are your favorite adventures? Which ones do you like the best?" And I was like, "Buy Seasons of Mystery just for Fireheart.
Oh yeah,
Like
no, it's
that
so
that
cool.
alone is worth the price of admission."
Yeah, I agree. It's Seasons of Mystery has so many great
It's
adventures,
all
but
good, but like that one.
that one is like because it's such a cool, different Vasen,
Mhm.
a well-known Vasen, but still a different one.
Mhm. It's
And
going to
then
be a
I've
fun
already said too
surprise.
much. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've said too much.
I'll say nothing further. But I am so excited to see Skid and Sydney's reaction in that one,
Yeah.
especially knowing I can see it on camera and see their faces. I am here for it. Now, controversial question. We can also cut this one if you would rather.
Mm.
There was a little bit of a shift with Man of River. We had that move to its own dedicated feed, and then jump back to the original Lost Mountain feed.
Yep.
Can you talk about why you thought to move it and what convinced you to move it back?
Um, I felt like calling it season three, and this is so typical of me. I read like one comment being like, "Hey, I'm a little confused. Is this a separate universe or is this a continuation?" And that, made me spiral. And I'm like, "Oh shit, I need to like make its own feed, separate from everything else. What if I want to continue Lost Mountain Saga universe stuff? Like
Mm-hmm.
all these things." And so I spend way too much time figuring out how to do a separate feed. Finally did it. Then Sydney and I had a production meeting with a social media strategist. We could
Mm-hmm.
not afford her, unfortunately, so that was the one and only meeting with her. But both Sydney and she was like, "What the fuck, Ellie? You already had like a huge following on this old podcast feed, and now you're not gonna use it.
Benefit
Like,
from that, yeah.
yeah, like what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Can I switch back now?" And I'm nearly started crying about it, but as you do. But then I'm like, "Okay, you're right. You're completely right. This is stupid." So I decided to. I'm like, "Okay, let's rebrand. Like, let's update the website. Let's make it very clear. We're keeping it all under one umbrella. The Lost
Mm-hmm.
Mountain Sagas. We are the Lost
Mm-hmm.
Mountain podcast. We're the Lost Mountain Saga. Man of River is a saga of Lost Mountain. of the crew of Lost Mountain, and I'm like, okay, I'm keeping it as simple and clear as possible, and so
Mhm.
that's what happened. So yeah,
Well, I am excited to see everything back on the same feed because I love scrolling through and seeing some of the old episodes
yeah,
and just being like, oh, okay, we're going on to this now. And
yeah,
it feels like jumping in and being able to catch up with some old friends.
yeah, and I think it's people will figure it out eventually, like what's going on.
Yeah.
Once once I don't think I'll ever want to create a network or anything like that of like I have so many shows. So I think this will be it. Like Man of
Mhm.
River will be the podcast that I do till I'm sick and tired of it, basically.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's what it's gonna be. So if you
Until we
found
get a
a
Saga
theme,
4 someday.
yeah, I am very curious about the new campaign they're releasing, City of Nightmares,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hoping we can play through that because I would love to play something pre-written. That's what by far takes the most time currently, is to
Mm-hmm.
figure out the story.
Oh,
Um,
I definitely feel that.
mm,
So you and I have similar anxieties, but channel
yeah,
them in such different ways. In that I am an
yeah,
over preparer, and
yeah.
so I have reams and reams and reams of pages of like, okay, they might do this, they might do this, they might go here, they might do this,
Oh,
and they're like, yeah, we go straight to the important thing, and I'm like, I could never have planned for this.
yeah. No, but that's what, and yeah, no, it's so hard. It's so
Mm-hmm.
hard because
Players are
um
unpredictable, and it's very rude on their part.
yeah, and sometimes I feel like certain things are, I'm like, oh, they will never figure this out. This is gonna be so obscure. They're never gonna get it, and then they get it immediately, and I'm like, what? And then other things that I'm like, oh no, this is way too obvious.
Yeah,
And then
this
they're
this
like,
is so
what?
simple. Of
What?
course, point A to
Yeah,
point B, I, as the person who know the answer, will
yeah,
see that this is a simple connection. Of course they'll make this. And they're like,
yeah,
what?
yeah. I know. It's so
What?
hard.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Now, speaking of things that you can see as a game master, do you think that you and Sid will ever trade places as GM and PC for this mystery over the
you know,
course of the campaign?
maybe not over the course of this campaign, but man, I've asked her so many times. Um, she very respectfully said, "I think this podcast is fun when you're GMing it."
Maybe as a
But
Patreon exclusive or a Patreon
exactly
goal.
with with that said, she wants to GM, and she wants to GM me in like something fun. Like we've talked about Merkborg, Alien, and
Hmm.
she's down for anything. But I think specifically for Vasen, I think she's like, no, there's a pull, like
That's the
it's
Ellie game.
attractive when it's a
Yeah.
Swedish person running me, no, an American through this thing. So I
Hmm.
think she thinks that she also thinks that we should keep it just the two of us for the most part,
Hmm.
unless Anne comes back to New York. But she's like, we because we've talked about like, should we just expand the cast and have a real quote unquote real party?
Hmm.
But she has expressed that, and I agree with her that having the two of us is also like, it's fun in itself because
Yeah, and it the whole pairing of the two of you and Anne is just iconic for the Lost Mountain Sagas at this point.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's who the show is.
yeah. And I think that's there's something to that, like
And Sid and Kaya a
um
little bit.
yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think like that's why I'm like opening up to guest roles, but like it's gonna
Hmm.
be short stints
Yeah.
here and there. um and I think that's nice, and then obviously the problem is that I will head to Sweden physically this summer, so
Hmm.
we won't be able to record in person, and since I'm so opposed to recording remotely, we have to like front load a lot.
Hmm.
um so yeah, that's the thing, but that's why I'm thinking like maybe if we can do like a remote special where she runs something through me, that would be
Yeah.
fun. But we'll see. We'll see. We have some ideas.
Hmm. That's exciting.
Hmm?
Now, while you're in Sweden, are you going to catch up with any of the team from Free League?
I would love to. They problem is I go to Sweden when everyone's on vacation, and Sweden
Mm.
famously have like 2 months of vacation every year, so the country's dead by the time I'm there. I love working with them, but I'm only a
Mhm.
freelancer, um, so they reach out. They basically reach out to me when they need something.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't. It's not like I'm an employee for them,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So they
It
they
does,
don't.
yeah.
I'm like they don't have to see me. Uh,
Now, given that you have done a lot of freelance work with Free League, you've got a lot of insider knowledge, let us say. Do you
mhm.
perhaps have anything that you can share about the plot and mysteries hinted at in the Dance of Dreams mystery from the Voss
I
and Core book?
No, that's the thing. I don't, which and I'm equally as upset like as everyone else. I have no idea where that story ends and
Hmm.
what the big mystery is. So, and I don't even know if it's someone said that it's going to be revealed in City of or like it's going to be expanded upon in City of My Nightmares,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I've sort of made my own version now in
I
my
was
head.
going to ask because there were some familiar names that people who've read the core book might have caught
Yeah.
in Man of River so far.
Yeah, like my plan right now is to use the clues we have about it and
Hmm.
expand on that a little bit, but then keep it as open as possible in case
Hmm.
ever is an official version.
Hmm.
Um, but I have very little insight. Even I when I make the tutorial videos and stuff, or like League Lounge, like I do like that talk show with them. They give me very little inside info, which makes sense. They don't. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
clumsy idiot, so I get it. But I also don't need. I hate carrying secrets, so I'm happy to
Uh,
not know.
I am going to maintain that all of this is a deep cover and you know exactly where it's all going. And it's like, oh
Exactly.
no, I'm just an
Yep.
innocent Swede. I don't know where this
Exactly.
could possibly happen next.
Yep. Yep. It's all an act.
Gonna reveal like midway through Man of River, like, and here's the official plot.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm close to what happened, but but I hope they have something cool planned.
Hmm.
Something that I haven't. I want to be surprised. That would be awesome.
Hmm. So this is wild and baseless speculation from me as a player who knows nothing.
Hmm.
I think that Vossen was much more successful than they expected, just
Yeah,
as a game system. And so
I think so too.
I think they were planning on doing just a Wicked Secret and the Vossen core book, and like that was everything. And so
Yep.
they were going to drop like the concept of like, ooh, there's maybe a secret mystery. You can build it in your own game.
Yeah.
Handful of people who might play this, and instead it blew up in a huge way. And they're like, oh, we have to answer this. Oh,
Yeah.
we
Maybe.
will at some point.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I wonder. I am curious because I know Thomas, one of the Thomas who wrote
Hmm.
Fireheart and one of the co-creators of the game. He loves Vassen. It's one. I
Hmm.
think it's one of his favorite games. But that might very well be what happened. Uh, so it's hard, but it's obviously hard to know what
Well,
goes on
hmm the
behind
secrets and
those
behind the secrets.
Swedes.
Well,
Yeah.
I may also be trying to angle to get an interview with Tomas before the release of City of My Nightmares. So
Oh
I will
yes.
try and find out if I can get an answer from him. And then
Yeah. Plug 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 me, I was gonna say. No, so tell him that I also wanna know. Uh
be like, have you heard of this Ellie Di Lorenzo person?
yeah.
She's
He's like
going places.
yeah, and he'll be like, not familiar. I have no idea who this is. No, no, he's one of the best ever. He and
Hmm.
Nils, both of them, those are the ones that I've talked to, but everyone I've met from Free League have been
Hmm.
awesome.
I am also really excited to get to the bottom of that mystery. I am actually incorporating my own ideas for what the death of ballads might mean into our show, and my
Yeah.
players have no idea because
Nice.
they have never even played a Dance of Death. So
Okay. Yeah.
they don't even know these things are like happening in the background.
Oh, nice. Nice, nice, nice.
You and I should trade thoughts and ideas offline, though.
Yeah, please do. Please also, yeah, send me because I might steal all of it.
Oh, 100%.
And
100%.
yeah,
We'll make the official answer whether Free League likes it or not.
exactly. They're like, God damn it, this is much better than we had thought. Oh crap.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. The number of times I've had players be like, I wonder if this is what's happening. I'm like, I wish that was what I wrote down. It is
Oh yeah,
now.
constantly,
Let me just
constantly.
completely change all the things that I did.
Yep, yep, yep.
Uh, I have two more quick questions.
Mhm,
The first of them, I think, sounds like it'll be coming up very soon. At the
mhm,
time of our recording, we haven't yet officially learned who the Man of River is.
mhm.
Uh, will we be learning the show's title figure soon?
Yes, and in a way, you already know who he is
Hmm.
because
But
it's in the title.
yeah, but
Sorry.
we don't necessarily know his significance and tie in to Eliza yet.
No, no, no. And that might not be revealed until the very end. What's his
Ooh.
purposes? But what the title refers to.
Hmm.
The way I see it is that where there currently is the prologue. Basically, we're
Hmm.
still in the prologue. Like I feel like
Okay.
the official adventure begins once this Sigtuna adventure is over, which is
You know,
Sweden's
I hear
oldest
that's the
town.
old. Beat me to it by half a second. I was just about to jump in there with, I hear that's the oldest town in Sweden.
It is. It is. It's surprising to me every time I hear it. Yep.
And the last thing that I wanted to end on is one of the things that has become such an iconic part of the Lost Mountain sagas is bringing in the tradition of fika. It's clear
Mm.
how much you and Sydney love having that be a part of the game, enjoying that coffee, enjoying those cinnamon rolls, enjoying kind of that moment of peace and community. Are there any other Scandi or specifically Swedish traditions that you want to incorporate into Man of River?
Ooh. Um. Like the fika one is so easy, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
it's such a big part of our culture. I try to highlight certain celebrations
Hmm.
every season, like Valborg in the first season,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure yet. There might. We'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, if you ever come out to Seattle, or if I ever
Yep.
head out to New York, let's grab
Yep.
some coffee. Let's grab some cinnamon rolls.
Oh yeah.
Uh, the local neighborhood of Ballard out here is all Norwegian and Swedish.
Oh wow.
So we have tons and tons of Scandinavian things out here.
I would love to go to Seattle. I was gonna go there in 2020, but then, the world ended.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
that
w-
would be awesome.
Funny story. I was actually going to go to Iceland and Norway in 2020, right before the world ended.
Yeah, great.
I was going to go to a wedding in the Lofoten Islands.
Oh, that's where the sun dice is.
I was really excited. It was during the
Dude.
summer, at least, so it was not going to be the
Oh
Lofoten
yeah.
Islands in the winter. But
It's arguably one of the most beautiful places on the entire planet. You should go whenever you can. It's expensive as
uh,
hell. Norway
yep.
is not for the people who want to spare money, but it's
Hmm.
it's it's very very it's very very beautiful up there. Oh,
Hmm.
cool. Go immediately.
All right. Well,
um
apparently I got to go buy some tickets, so we're going to have to cut our interview short.
yep.
Uh, Ellie, thank you
Amazing.
so much for talking to me today.
Of course,
Listener,
this.
if there is any remote chance that you have not yet been listening to the Lost Mountain Sagas, do it. My God, what are you
Yeah.
still doing here?
Yeah.
We actually gave a shout out to Lost Mountain at the end of episode 1 of our podcast
Oh,
because y'all were a huge inspiration for me to finally do an actual play and are part of what got
yes.
me into Vossen. So
Yeah.
it has been so exciting getting to talk to you.
This has been so much fun. What a lovely interview. What great questions. And I feel like I've talked so much about myself, and I now I you have to make it. We have to make up for it where I ask you questions. But this has been great.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
I'll see you around. You come to New York
Absolutely.
and then, or actually go to Norway first, so we can talk about
All
it.
right, so I'll
Yeah.
go to Norway and then I'll meet you in Sweden when everyone else has left the country.
Yes.
And then
Perfect.
we'll break into the Free League offices and we'll find out what the Death of Ballads is.
Exactly. Oh,
Tomas and Niels, be on your guard. We're coming for you.
yeah. This is a not very veiled threat. This is
This is a moderately possible threat,
yeah.
depending on travel arrangements.
Yeah. And yeah. All right. Thank you
All
so
right,
much,
thank
Brian.
you. This has been wonderful, and I cannot wait for the next episode of Man of River.
Yes. Awesome.
Bye, Ellie.
Bye.